Merci de vous rejoindre à nous aujourd'hui pour une annonce qui aura un impact majeur pour toutes les communautés du Canada Atlantique. I'm joining you today from beautiful downtown Moncton, where I'm grateful to live and work near the banks of the Petitpas River on the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, a territory that is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship. Over the last few years, our government has worked tirelessly on a number of very important issues, the kind of issues that are life-changing to Canadians everywhere in the country, and in this case, to future Canadians as well. By working with our partners and by working towards a truly progressive and ambitious agenda, we were able to have days with announcements that we will remember because of their lasting impact in helping Canada achieve its full potential. I'm very excited about today's announcement and what we're continuing to do to bring more newcomers and skilled workers to Atlantic Canada. We know it. Our region is currently facing one of the most pressing issues when it comes to the declining labor force. Alors qu'on est en train de nous relever de la pandémie mondiale, on doit prendre des mesures robustes et innovantes pour remédier à la pénurie de main-d'œuvre et ainsi permettre aux entreprises de chez nous de croître et de tirer profit de l'opportunité que nous offre la relance économique. On a la chance de vivre dans une région qui bénéficie de la richesse des connaissances et des cultures de gens des quatre coins du monde. Le programme pilote d'immigration au Canada Atlantique donne l'opportunité à des milliers de personnes de partout de venir s'installer chez nous, mais donne aussi l'opportunité à nos communautés de bénéficier de leurs contributions essentielles. That is why immigration is a top priority, because attracting and retaining newcomers to our beautiful region is good for our economy and also good for our communities. Je suis très fière d'être ici parmi vous aujourd'hui en tant que ministre responsable de l'Agence de promotion économique du Canada Atlantique. En effet, l'APECA travaille depuis longtemps en étroite collaboration avec les gouvernements provinciaux et les intervenants de la région pour appuyer des mesures clés comme le projet pilote d'immigration de l'Atlantique et le programme étudié pour m'y établir et de nombreuses autres initiatives qui contribuent à la vitalité de notre belle région. En tant que ministre des langues officielles, je me dois également de souligner à quel point l'immigration est essentielle à la vitalité de nos communautés francophones et que l'augmentation de l'immigration francophone assure la survie et le dynamisme de la langue française du Canada Atlantique. In conclusion, I believe that one of the reasons Atlantic Canada has been successful in attracting and retaining newcomers the past few years is because we, the federal and provincial governments, and employers and settlement provider organizations, have combined our efforts and worked together towards a common goal. Today, we are building on our strengths and moving forward for generations to come. So on that note, it is my pleasure to introduce to you my friend and colleague and fellow Atlantic Canadian, Minister Sean Fraser. Sean, à vous la parole.
Merci, Ginette. Good morning, everyone. Bon matin, tout le monde. C'est un plaisir d'être ici avec vous pour une bonne annonce aujourd'hui. Sean Fraser, Basin de Guayanuk. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you here virtually from the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Look, folks, I would much rather to be there with you in person today. But if the past year and a half has taught us anything, it's that we need to treat the threat of COVID-19 seriously in order to protect our communities against the spread of this serious illness. So today, you get me live from my basement in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, as opposed to Pier 21, where we had hoped to conduct this event. Before I go any further, I'd like to welcome some of my colleagues and provincial counterparts from my home province in Nova Scotia, Premier Houston. Tim, look, so good to see you here today. I know today's announcement is something that you're a big supporter of. From Newfoundland and Labrador, Premier Furey, our first official event together, and I'll let folks who are tuned in know it took him about 30 minutes after my appointment before he started hassling me to get more people to come to Newfoundland. From PEI, Minister MacKay, and from New Brunswick, Minister Dunn, your presence here really communicates to me the fact that you've bought into the importance of immigration as a growth strategy for Atlantic Canada. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have your presence here for our announcement. And of course, last but not least, my friend and colleague, Minister Petitpas Taylor, an absolute champion for our entire region, and not only the Minister of Official Languages, but the Minister responsible for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, which is a key driver of economic growth for the region that we both care so much about. Look, we are here to talk about one of my favorite subjects, immigration in Atlantic Canada. And I've got to say that the timing of today's event is particularly appropriate, given that my home province of Nova Scotia passed a very important milestone just the other day, achieving a population of 1 million people this week. This is no small thing. It's something we've been chugging forward toward for quite some time. Tim, I know it's only been a number of months on the job, but to get 1 million people this quick, no small feat, no small feat at all. I got to say, this has been an extraordinarily challenging time for immigration right across Canada. Over the course of this pandemic, we've embarked on an effort to welcome the most permanent residents in any given year in the history of Canada at a time when our borders were closed to travelers. You can imagine the conundrum we find ourselves in, trying to get creative to find ways to ensure that we continue to grow our population in a way that will support our communities and our economy when we had great difficulty moving people into Canada in order to protect the public's health and well-being. But I am thrilled to share that this past month, Canada has welcomed more than 47,000 new permanent residents, which is an all-time record for a single month. And we are now on our pace to meet our target of 401,000 new permanent residents by the end of this year, which will be the most newcomers in 1 year in the history of Canada. Now, I want to move on to the subject of today's announcement, the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program. You know, when I was first knocking doors as a candidate in 2015, it was apparent that communities across Atlantic Canada were experiencing an extraordinary demographic challenge. We were facing an aging workforce, limited growth in our communities, labor shortages, and we had difficulty, frankly, retaining newcomers, particularly in our smaller rural communities. In my first few years as an MP, in fact, in the first few weeks as an MP, my colleagues and I had many discussions about the need to take a new approach to solving some of these long-standing problems that faced our region. After a few early discussions, my friend and colleague, Elena Lockhart, the former Member of Parliament for Fundy Royal, used her private member's bill to launch Motion 39, which calls on Parliament's Immigration Committee to launch a study on how to boost immigration to Atlantic Canada to solve some of these demographic issues. And Elena, if you're tuning in today, I want to say thank you personally. I remember the opportunity to participate in the debate, the committee study that took place, because that motion laid the groundwork for the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, which launched the following year. Le fait d'attirer de nouveaux arrivants et de les aider à trouver un emploi, s'établir et s'intégrer avec succès dans les collectivités nécessite la collaboration de nombreux partenaires. C'est pourquoi, de concert avec les provinces, les régions, les municipalités et les employeurs, nous avons travaillé à élaborer des programmes visant à étendre les retombées de l'immigration dans plus de régions du Canada. Everybody came to the table, various federal departments, provincial partners, and employers in the region as well. We decided to test out a new model, an employer-centric model that matched newcomers to jobs before they arrived here. We got some of our region's biggest companies on board across important sectors like healthcare, accommodation, food service, and manufacturing. And before long, smaller businesses were jumping at the chance to take part as well. Finally, we built in enhanced settlement services so newcomers could lay down roots when they got here and hit the ground running to set themselves up for success in the long term. And I got to tell you, it worked. The Atlantic Immigration Pilot has now brought over 10,000 newcomers to Atlantic Canada, and already we've seen 9,800 job offers through the program. This has helped businesses, large and small, get the talent that they need to succeed and to grow. And St. Quentin, New Brunswick, Groupe Savoie, which also has a presence in Tim and my backyard in Pictou County, they were expecting to lose a third of their employees to retirements over the next decade. Thanks to the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, they've been able to get some of the workers they need to run their plant and sawmill. In PEI, Whisperwood Villa could never hire enough personal support workers locally and found hiring temporary foreign workers to be a difficult process. Through the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, they've been able to attract the kind of people they need to help take care of seniors in Charlottetown. In Kings Point, Newfoundland, Green Bay Fiber Products produces world-class boats. And through the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, they've been able to hire skilled tradespeople to help build them who've come from Brazil and the Philippines and beyond to contribute to the success of a traditional sector. And my home province of Nova Scotia, in addition to the example of Groupe Savoie I mentioned, the Dartmouth Child Development Center was in danger of closing because it couldn't find enough staff. And thanks to the pilot, they've been able to help recruit 4 early childhood educators, and the center can take care of the community's youngsters for years to come. And I see Mr. Shannon, who's joined on the call today. The importance of immigration to the care workers in his business, which I hope you'll hear more about today, is something we had the opportunity to discuss recently that I know is going to help set them up for success in the long term in our region. Now, look, it's one thing to get people here. It's another thing to keep them. And I'm really pleased to share that the Atlantic Immigration Pilot has demonstrated a successful model to retain newcomers once they arrive. After 1 year, more than 90% of newcomers under the Atlantic Immigration Pilot were still living in Atlantic Canada. And this is a much higher rate than all of the other immigration programs we have on offer in every single Atlantic province. So what did this mean for our region? In one word, growth. In cities and in rural communities across Atlantic Canada, the labor force has grown considerably over the past few years. If I look at Moncton, for example, Minister Petitpas Taylor, you'll be pleased to see it's increased by a staggering 18%. More broadly, over the course of the past few years, Atlantic Canada's population has grown at the fastest clip since the 1970s, or perhaps a bit earlier. And the Atlantic Immigration Pilot is part of the reason why. As I mentioned, just this week, Nova Scotia's population topped 1 million people, the first Atlantic province to reach this important milestone. And all of this came from what was, of course, a pilot program. Pilots are, by their very definition, temporary. They are a test run to see if something should continue. And I'm very pleased to share, and this is the precise reason why we're here today, that based on the success of the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, I am thrilled to announce that we're going to be making it a permanent feature of Canada's immigration system. As of January 1st of this coming year, the Atlantic Immigration Pilot will become the Atlantic Immigration Program. Grâce au succès du programme pilote d'immigration au Canada Atlantique et l'accueil très favorable qu'il a reçu, je suis ravi d'annoncer qu'il le rendra permanent. À partir du 1er janvier 2022, ce programme deviendra le programme d'immigration au Canada Atlantique. The new program will begin with at least 6,000 dedicated spots in the upcoming year. It's going to complement and enhance existing initiatives like the provincial nominee programs. And with labor shortages top of mind as we seek to exit this pandemic recession, it's going to help businesses attract the skilled newcomers they need. You know, we've recovered across Canada 106% of the jobs that were lost during the pandemic. But when I talk to local employers and when I look at the data across Canada, they're still looking to hire more people. This change is going to help set us up for success so we can boost out of this pandemic recession more quickly than most other developed economies across the entire world. And I've got to say, as a member of Parliament and as a proud Atlantic Canadian, it's been heartening to see the difference that the Atlantic Immigration Pilot and now program has made. And just the past 5 years between this program, between our effort to welcome Syrian refugees and the embrace of immigration by people across the political spectrum from different provinces, from different parties, I've witnessed a serious change in the attitudes toward newcomers. You know, we are notoriously friendly in Atlantic Canada, but I don't know that we've always been as welcoming as we could be. When I think of some of the attitudes that were a little more prevalent when I was a kid that I don't hear as much of, I don't hear about the attitudes where people believe newcomers are trying to take their jobs. I hear about the attitudes of needing newcomers to sustain jobs for Canadians. This is an extraordinarily positive change. And to see this welcoming attitude coming out of rural Atlantic Canada is the kind of thing that makes me incredibly proud to be from here. Look, I've got to say, folks, I'm thrilled to share with you today that this program is being made permanent. I can't wait to help write the next chapter of immigration to Atlantic Canada, and I'm so thrilled to have our provincial counterparts here today so we can help write it together. Thank you. Merci tout le monde. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I look forward to hearing from some of my counterparts. And with that, I'm so happy to pass the microphone to my friend and neighbor, Premier Houston from Pictou County, Nova Scotia.
Well, good morning, friends, colleagues, partners in growth. Good morning to each and every one of you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here as Premier on behalf of the province of Nova Scotia, and it's extra special to be here with my own Member of Parliament, Minister Fraser. A little envious that you're at home in your basement in Pictou County right now, and I look forward to getting home over the next couple of days. But I know we're both particularly excited about this announcement, so thank you so much. And you're right, this announcement couldn't be coming at a more exciting time for Nova Scotians. Just yesterday, Nova Scotia celebrated a major milestone. For the first time, our province has more than 1 million people living in it. This has been a milestone for a long time, and I'm so pleased that we were able to achieve that. And some of those million people were born here. Others chose Nova Scotia to be their home. But each is Nova Scotian. Each is a blue noser and an important part of Nova Scotia's story. Some of them came here through this highly successful Atlantic immigration pilot program. Since the pilot was first introduced in 2017, as Sean mentioned, almost 4,500 people came to Nova Scotia through that program, and Nova Scotia is absolutely better for it. I see my friend Jason Shannon there. I'm so happy that Jason's with us today. Shanex, which provides services to seniors, is one example of an employer that has benefited from the Atlantic Immigration Pilot. And with support through the pilot and the Provincial Immigration Department, they've hired much needed staff, incredible additions to their team and to our communities. New Nova Scotians fuel our economies. They create new businesses and jobs, they power our labor force, and they enrich our communities. That's a story we want to keep writing. So thank you, Minister Fraser. Thank you to the federal government for making the Atlantic Immigration Pilots program into the Atlantic Immigration Program as a permanent program that supports the next chapter for Nova Scotia and for the entire region. And it particularly supports our goal here in Nova Scotia of becoming 2 million strong by 2060. We have very ambitious growth goals, but our ambitious growth goals are very achievable in partnership and working together across the region. So Nova Scotia has already grown 5 times faster in the past 5 years than it had in the previous 25 years. This is momentum that we must keep building on. So continuing strategic, talented, targeted growth, focused on healthcare, focused on the skilled trades, that's the way we'll grow our province. So the Atlantic Immigration Program is an amazing program. Thank you, Minister Fraser. Thank you, Minister Petitpas Taylor, for everything you're doing to support the region. Supporting this program makes all of Atlantic Canada stronger, and we're so excited with today's announcement. And now I'm pleased to introduce the Honourable Andrew Furey, my friend, the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. Andrew?
Well, thanks very much, Premier. Welcome, everybody. It's such an honor to be here today on behalf of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. I can't tell you how excited we are about this program. We recognize in Newfoundland and Labrador that we're the only population, the only province in the country that is declining. We have some of the oldest people, some of the oldest Canadians in the country, and we have a declining fertility rate. So one of the solutions has to be a robust, healthy immigration policy. And I put so much emphasis on this that we created our own immigration department, and I'm so incredibly privileged to be working alongside the talented Minister Jerry Byrne in that portfolio, who's not only for the first time in Newfoundland and Labrador's history met our immigration targets, we've exceeded them. All across our beautiful province and the coast and the beautiful communities that are scattered amongst us, we recognize that we need people to grow. We need people to excel. We need people to reach our economic potential. Before, in the past, our greatest barrier has been our geography and the fact that the part of the province is an island and it's incredible cost to export. That's no longer the case. Just yesterday, I met with an incredibly successful technology firm who is hungry, starved for more immigrants, more people in their sector. And we see that this targeted Atlantic immigration program now to be a key tool in the toolbox to meet their demands. Also, though, around our coastline are fish plants that have an aging population that continue to need healthy, young, vibrant, new immigrants coming to their communities to support what is and it still remains a key industry in our province, and that's the fishery. We've heard it from, and I'd like to echo some of the other sentiments that have been said already today, that in the past, in Newfoundland and Labrador, you heard the narrative that people were going to come and take jobs. That has completely changed. People know that we need a healthy immigration policy in order not only to protect jobs, but to create new jobs, to create a sustainable way of life for a diverse society that reflects who we are as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, not just now, but into the future and a more diverse Canada. So I couldn't be more proud to be here today. Really looking forward to moving forward. Congratulations, Tim, on meeting that that goal. Newfoundland and Labrador has set an aggressive immigration target of 5,100 new immigrants over the next 4 to 5 years. Minister Byrne has been tapped on the shoulder, and Minister Fraser, I assure you that that's not the only calls you're going to be hearing from us in terms of pushing you in your targets, because we need people in order to reach our full economic potential. And when we win, the rest of Canada wins. So thanks very much. Happy to be here and incredibly supportive of this program. I'm throwing it to someone else now, am I? Is that how it works? I'm not reading my notes, so I guess we're going to New Brunswick? Is that what's happening?
Yes, it is, and thank you, Premier Furey.
Thanks for hearing all these notes, but I didn't use them, so
you did a great.
New Brunswick.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Premier Furey, and it's nice to see everyone here this morning. This is very exciting for the Atlantic region. And in particular, we're very excited here in New Brunswick, and we hope that we can follow our colleagues in Nova Scotia with respect to the great stuff that you're doing there in terms of meeting the million population mass. That's awesome. Congratulations on that. So, merci, Monsieur Premier Ministre. Je suis très excitée d'être ici. As the Minister responsible for Opportunities New Brunswick, Economic Development and Small Business and Immigration, this program is particularly near and dear to my heart. Thank you for allowing me today to be here virtually. As my colleague said, it would have been wonderful if we could have been here physically present with one another, and hopefully that'll happen soon. Population growth, as all of my colleagues said, is crucial for economic growth. We recognize that. In Canada, we know that our best asset is actually our people. And in this region, we know that we must attract more people. We all know the real estate market, the low cost of living here in the East Coast, and our East Coast lifestyle are assets that give us a significant advantage over other regions. I welcome this opportunity to continue collaborating with our Atlantic counterparts, with support from the federal government, with whom, without their partnership, this wouldn't be possible. So thank you to my federal counterparts here today. We really appreciate everything that you've done with respect to making today happen. And as I said earlier, it is our goal here in New Brunswick to foster and promote the Atlantic region's shared interest in improving population growth, developing a skills pipeline, encouraging international study, increasing private sector and tourism investment, and fostering collaboration amongst all of our business leaders. Le Nouveau-Brunswick est la seule province officiellement bilingue au Canada, et nous continuons à promouvoir ce que cela peut représenter pour les entreprises. I am very grateful to be here today with all of you, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work together and build on the successes of the pilot as we transition to the permanent, and I say permanent, Atlantic Immigration Program. I am excited to see what this will mean for our region and for the country as a whole. In closing, I'd like to hand over the microphone now to my colleague in Prince Edward Island, the Honourable Matthew MacKay, Minister of Economic Growth, Tourism and Culture. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Minister Dunn, and good morning, Minister Fraser, Minister Petitpas Taylor, Premier Houston, and Premier Furey. It's great to see all of you. It's an honor to be part of today's wonderful announcement and bring greetings on behalf of Premier King and the province of Prince Edward Island. It's without a doubt that the Atlantic Immigration Program contributes greatly to our overall growth and success of Prince Edward Island. For a province of our size, programs like the AIP can go a long way and make a big impact. For the last 4 years, this program has played an important role in helping Prince Edward Island increase our population and decrease our median age. It's helped us expand our economy, fill labor gaps, and grow communities across the island from tip to tip. And now AIP is helping us with something that we all didn't see coming when the pilot first launched in 2017. Now, the Atlantic Immigration Program plays a very important role in our economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Needless to say, we are very pleased to hear this program is becoming permanent. Island employers have been true champions in embracing AIP over the years, as they recognize all the benefits the program has to offer to our province. It's a great feeling to see our retention rates increasing, and those rates are a true testament that people are not only coming to PEI, but they're choosing to stay because they want to. They see their life here and they see their future here. And that right there is the greatest gift the Atlantic Immigration Program has given to Prince Edward Island. We thank the federal government for their leadership in the program, and we thank our neighboring Atlantic provinces for their continued collaboration. We look forward to continuing to welcome more people to our province through the Atlantic Immigration Program to live, work, and stay. And now I'll throw it over to Jason Shannon, President of CEO of Shanex Incorporated. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister MacKay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to participate in today's announcement. At Shanex, we've had firsthand experience in the success of the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, and we are extremely pleased today to know that the program will become permanent. We care for and support thousands of seniors in Atlantic Canada, and the number of seniors is growing and is going to continue to grow faster here than anywhere else across the country, which obviously brings significant increasing demand for healthcare workers. So making this program permanent could not be more important for all healthcare providers. In our organization, we've successfully attracted and supported 160 employees through AIP so far, with hundreds more to come. It's allowed us to recruit highly skilled international educated nurses who provide excellent care to our residents. Through this program, internationally educated nurses arrive and work as certified personal care workers while attaining their permanent residency status and their credentialing to become RNs and LPNs. They bring extensive experience to our homes in urban centers and to the smaller communities such as Debert, Bridgewater, Miramichi. These programs allow our newcomers to attain their PR status more efficiently with greater certainty, allowing them to bring their families over quicker and keeping them together, which really improves the settlement experience and increases the chances of them making Atlantic Canada their permanent home. This program has put Atlantic Canada on the map to compete for international talent, so I'm relieved to know this will continue. So thank you, Minister Fraser, Premier Houston, everyone on the call today for making this permanent as we build our recruiting roadmaps into the future and can count on this program to deliver hopefully great results for Atlantic Canada and the people settling here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. Now I'd like to take an opportunity to thank everyone who participated in today's really exciting announcement, and I'd like to turn it over to the moderator for a Q&A.
Perfect. Merci à tous. On prendra des questions pour 20 minutes. You have one question, one follow-up, so please keep them brief. We've got 20 minutes. I'll start the clock and turn it over to the operator.
Thank you. Merci. If you have a question, please press *1 on your device's keypad. Si vous désirez poser une question, veuillez s'il vous plaît appuyer sur les touches étoile 1 de votre appareil. The first question is from Hadil Ibrahim from CBC News. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Thank you. Just making sure you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Minister Fraser, what have been the major changes made to the program throughout the years since 2017? Is anything major changing now that it's permanent?
So, look, first of all, I think what's remaining the same is the biggest story. An employer-driven, regionally specific program for Atlantic Canada is going to be implemented on a permanent basis. We've been working with some of our provincial counterparts to identify a few small areas that we needed to adjust, including clarifying the roles between different partners, increasing employer support through training, and strengthening some of the program requirements to ensure newcomers are able to successfully and economically establish in the region, including making sure they have the training, for example, to meet the job that they've been offered. One of the other changes that I expect will be positive going forward is essentially marketing the opportunity to more employers in the region. But the core features of an employer-driven, regionally specific immigration program for Atlantic Canada remain the same. And I'm very confident that this program is going to be set up for success in the long term.
Thank you. And my follow-up, the majority of, as you mentioned, the majority of settlement work does fall on the employer. I guess what kind of supports will be made permanent to make sure that newcomers are getting the proper settlement help and making sure that the employers are fulfilling that end of the bargain?
So one of the strengths of this approach is that employers know best what their workers need to succeed in their community and in their on the shop floor. One of the things that we've done to supplement the work that employers are doing to make sure that their workers are set up for success is offering what's called the dedicated services channel to make sure that we have staff on hand who can cater to the needs of those employers to ensure that they have access to the tools that they need to make sure that their workers are going to succeed in the business. So we have, for example, and it may vary a little bit province by province, access to information about how to secure language training, how to secure information about opening a bank account for people who may be unfamiliar with things in a new country, making sure that they have access to the on-the-job training opportunities that they need, and frankly, making sure they have access to the answers they need about the immigration process to Canada. Through the dedicated services channel, employers actually have an opportunity to have direct contact with IRCC staff to make sure they have everything they need to navigate the process for their new workers. That's going to remain a part of the program going forward and will help ensure that it's a smooth transition for new workers who come to Atlantic Canada and become permanent residents to Canada.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Eloise Rodriguez. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Oui, bonjour. Ça serait peut-être pour Madame Petitpas Taylor, mais c'est pour savoir concrètement comment ce programme permet d'attirer des francophones dans les provinces de l'Atlantique et surtout de les retenir. Est-ce qu'il y a des critères dans ce programme pour ça?
Mais merci beaucoup pour la question. C'est sûr que nous reconnaissons que le français est au déclin au Canada ainsi qu'au Québec. Et puis, nous voulons tout faire qu'est-ce que nous pouvons pour s'assurer que nous allons continuer à encourager l'immigration française au Canada Atlantique. C'est sûr que le poids démographique pour nous est très important et c'est pour cette raison qu'avec ce programme aussi, nous voulons aussi mettre en œuvre une stratégie nationale puis une stratégie ambitieuse pour encourager l'immigration francophone partout au Canada, mais aussi, oui, au Canada Atlantique.
En suivi, quand vous parlez d'une stratégie nationale, qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire? Qu'est-ce que vous aimeriez voir?
Mais encore une fois, dans notre plan de la modernisation de la loi sur les langues officielles, nous voulons établir et puis mettre en œuvre une stratégie nationale, puis une stratégie ambitieuse pour soutenir l'immigration francophone hors Québec et puis aussi au Québec, puisque nous reconnaissons que le français est en déclin dans ce pays. Et oui, tout à fait en Amérique du Nord. Et puis de là, c'est pour cette raison que nous voulons s'assurer que nous avons quand même une stratégie ambitieuse pour s'assurer que nous pouvons augmenter notre poids démographique pour l'immigration francophone.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Alan Cochrane from Times and Transcript Moncton. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I hope so. Mr. Minister, one of the issues during the program was that some people coming to Canada had trouble transferring their professional credentials from their home country to Canada, and I had heard stories of people going through a lot of hoops to get those things transferred so they could actually do work in their chosen field. Is this being addressed in the program as well?
Look, thanks for raising this, and I want to say thank you in particular to Premier Houston for taking the occasion during a recent meeting we shared with the Prime Minister for raising the importance of recognition of foreign credentials as an issue to set us up for success, not just the newcomer who arrives here, but for our economies more broadly. So the Atlantic Immigration Program doesn't specifically address the issue of foreign credential recognition, but because this is an issue that we need to work on a sector-by-sector basis in many instances. My own view is that the federal government should be working in partnership not only with its provincial counterparts, but also with the regulatory bodies who have a certain degree of independence in most instances to help expedite the recognition of these foreign credentials. by working to harmonize the entry requirements for given professions across different jurisdictions. This is something we can work on, but this is an issue that I intend to tackle, and the Prime Minister has put on my radar as an issue that we need to address to make sure that we ensure a smooth transition. So to answer your question, the Atlantic Immigration Pilot doesn't directly address the issue of foreign credential recognition, but it's something we need to work on in partnership with provinces and regulatory bodies across every immigration stream to Canada, and that's something that I intend to work on with some of the fine folks you see on the call this morning.
Your follow-up, please.
Okay, a follow-up would be during the COVID pandemic, obviously there were travel restrictions for a lot of people. How are we moving out of the travel restrictions now and allowing more immigrants and newcomers to actually get to Canada?
So look, one of the things that I want to be very, very cautious about is making sure that we treat the Omicron variant with the respect that it deserves. And there are certain measures that we've put in place, including a recent travel advisory, encouraging Canadians to avoid all non-essential travel at this particular point until we have a firm handle on the dangers that the Omicron variant presents to our communities. That said, over the past number of months, before the last couple of days, our international travel had resumed to some degree, and we did see more and more people coming in. I anticipate as we continue to move forward, the travel restrictions over time, as the vaccination rates continue to go up, will allow us to move people across borders more easily. But this is going to depend on the public health advice that we receive from the Public Health Agency of Canada, and of course, the provincial chief medicals of officers that will be providing advice to our provincial governments as well. But going forward in the next few years, over the course of this pilot becoming a permanent program, I do anticipate you're going to be seeing more and more people arriving. We've had to adopt a few innovative approaches to reach this anticipated record that we will set this year for new permanent residents, including targeting people for permanent residency that were already in Canada, such as international students or people who were working on a temporary visa. But I anticipate as we go forward, we're going to have a healthy mix of people who are here with some experience in Canada now and other employees who may not yet be here that will come to Canada through a program such as the Atlantic Immigration Pilot as the public health situation allows.
Thank you. And just to note, if we say your name, your line will be open. You don't have to ask. We'll ask you if we can't hear you. Avec ça, la prochaine question, s'il vous plaît.
Excellent. Thank you. Merci. Yes, the next question will be from Paul Withers from CBC News, Nova Scotia. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My question is about the 6,000 spots. How will they be allocated on a per province basis, or will it be first come, first serve?
Look, there's been to some degree an allocation in the past, but I don't want to prejudge conversations that I've not yet had the opportunity to have personally with some of the folks who are here today. I know in particular that that some of the folks I've had the opportunity to speak with have a significant ambition. I'd note that in my remarks I've indicated we're starting with at least 6,000 spots. So I see Tim trying to chime in here because he's one of the folks who's very excited to welcome more people, and I couldn't agree with him more. So Paul, to answer your question, there will be a bit of an allocation, but I will be working with some of our provincial counterparts to hear what their interests are, to make sure that we make the most of this program. And if there's a shared ambition to do more, then that's a conversation I am more than willing to have, because I believe in this program and believe it's going to create opportunities for employers to find the workers they need as they struggle with a once-in-a-century labor crunch associated with this pandemic.
My follow-up question is with respect to how this might work in connection with shortages in the seafood sector in particular, where every year we seem to hear about problems getting temporary foreign workers in to keep the critical mass, to keep the plants cooking. How do you see this working, or do you see it working, addressing the kind of issues that the resource sector, at least the seafood sector, has been dealing with?
So there's not a silver bullet to address the labor shortage that we see across different sectors. The Atlantic Immigration Pilot has the potential to help the seafood sector, but so do other programs. And the advantages that the Atlantic Immigration Program will offer to the seafood sector will apply equally to frankly, every sector that's experiencing a labor shortage. And right now, as every business seeks to open at precisely the same time in a given jurisdiction because of the public health restrictions, what we're seeing is, although more people have returned to work than were working before the pandemic, when all of the businesses are competing for the same pool of workers at the same time, it makes it a very challenging environment for businesses to find talent. But specifically to the seafood sector, one of the things that we're working on that was included in the mandate letter I received yesterday is developing a trusted employer model through the temporary foreign worker stream. For employers who have a history of treating their workers fairly, of welcoming temporary foreign workers to their businesses in what is primarily a seasonal industry, we're going to reduce some of the administrative hurdles that they need to comply with that will make it easier. I would suggest that before we start chipping away at the spaces that we're making available through the Atlantic Immigration Program, the new trusted employer stream through the temporary foreign workers program that we're seeking to develop right now will provide an easier, less administrative, an easier path with fewer administrative hurdles to get those good employers, which are most of them, who have a history of supporting workers and treating them fairly, get them here as quickly and as easily as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Yes, thank you. Merci. The next question is from Keith Doucette from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. I actually have a question for Mr. Shannon. I'm wondering what the pressures in healthcare has done for your efforts to retain workers who come over that you've recruited through the program.
I think I understand your question. I mean, it was spoken earlier by the minister. We're actually seeing quite high retention rates from people that are coming through the program, and for a lot of these people, this program has given them a certainty to pathway. And as I said earlier, we're finding that because of the speed in which that they're getting their PR, they're able to bring their families over. And I think for us, seeing that happen, and we're seeing places like Debert, where we're actually bringing over groups of 6 or 8 people, and when their families get here, it really becomes a situation where you have a community of interest. And it's creating, I think, hope for longevity and people, settling down and also looking for opportunity. We have a lot of people that have come through the programs that are, obviously in the front line, but lots of people that are looking to aspire to management roles and those type of things. So, I think it takes a full package, and it obviously takes a community to make, people feel welcomed. And I agree with what was spoken earlier. I mean, more now than ever, we're finding that the receptivity of people coming is very high. The unions are supportive, the frontline members are supportive, and they're often the mentors for these people that come in, and so it's really a community of interest to make that successful.
Yeah, and my follow-up is for the minister. Minister, I'm just wondering, do you see a synergy with the housing strategy as well? Because it's one thing to bring people, but if you have a shortage of housing stock and can't help them locate, that would be a problem, would it not?
This was the very first item I raised in my first meeting with our deputy minister after my appointment to this particular position. Look, you've hit the nail on the head. We need to not just make sure people get here, but they're set up for success when they get here. Our immigration strategy is going to work hand in glove with the implementation of our national housing strategy, which is seeking to build out millions of new units across Canada. One of the things that Canadians are watching closely is the impact of population growth on housing. But the answer to the housing crunch is not to bring fewer people. That would be a recipe for disaster over the long term. The recipe for a successful immigration strategy and housing strategy is to build more supply. We need to target both the housing affordability issue and the affordable housing issue for people who can't afford market rent. But by building out stock through the national housing strategy at the same time that we welcome more newcomers and partner with provinces and municipalities to ensure that they have the tools that they need, we're going to be able to solve this problem and provide businesses with the workers they need, communities with the people that they need, and newcomers with the housing that they need. It's not going to be an easy thing to do, but our eyes are focused squarely on this problem because if we adopt a population growth strategy without a housing strategy, we know we'd be destined for failure. But thankfully, the wheels are already in motion for the last few years with our national housing strategy, and this has been something we've been contemplating for several years now.
Thank you. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. Yes, the next question is from Paul Bacon from allnovascotia.com. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Minister Fraser, the 6,000 dedicated spots you mentioned in the program for next year, how is that number arrived at?
So the program started with a few years ago with 2,000 spots plus families, because it started out as a pilot program. There's authority in the legislation, the empowering legislation for the person who holds my particular chair to launch pilot programs that allow a particular number of spaces up to 5,000. That was implemented on the basis of that legislative authority back in 2017. As we seek to make this program permanent, we want to increase the ambition, but we want to make sure we do it in a way that gives us confidence that the spaces we make available will be filled. As I mentioned, if those on the call with us have an increased ambition, then that's a conversation I'm more than willing to have. We want to make sure that we don't over-allocate one particular stream, because that can have a detrimental effect on the other lines of business that IRCC offers to bring newcomers to Canada. If we have unused spaces that we allocate in different immigration streams, that puts us in a position where at the end of the year, we may not be able to reach the overall national target to bring newcomers to Canada. Frankly, I've got all the faith in the world that Atlantic Canada is ready to welcome more people, and I look forward to continuing to pursue growth in this and other programs to bring more workers to our region in the next few years.
And my follow-up question, you had mentioned, along with some others, that the traditional attitude about newcomers coming to take away jobs seems to have disappeared. But do you think it's gone for good? Is it possible in another economic downturn that might come back?
Look, to a certain degree, there may always be negative or xenophobic attitudes in any given community. But I've got to say, the best way to overcome that attitude in a person is to introduce them to a newcomer. What I saw in the wake, in particular, of the Syrian refugee resettlement effort in rural Nova Scotia was we had examples, obviously, like the global success story of the Haddad family and Peace by Chocolate. We've got a family who arrived here and is now putting dozens of Nova Scotians to work, working in their business. We see fishermen who realize that temporary foreign workers come to fill processing jobs that sustain one of the most important traditional sectors in the history of Atlantic Canada. There's all kinds of high-profile examples, but I'll give you just one particular story. There's a young guy named Omar Kasim. I'm sure Tim knows him as well. His parents run a restaurant on the waterfront in Pictou. He set up a lemonade stand next to his parents' shop on the Market Wharf in the town of Pictou this summer so he could buy a Nintendo Switch for himself. His mother told him about a 12-year-old boy in Syria who had throat cancer and couldn't afford his surgery. So Omar put his savings from his lemonade stand towards paying for this young boy's surgery. This is the value that newcomers bring to our community. And this is what people are seeing in our community every day. They're seeing that 1/3 of our doctors come from another country. They're seeing that 1/3 of our businesses are owned by newcomers. They're seeing that our long-term care facilities are allowing our parents and grandparents to stay in their communities longer. I think the overwhelming majority of people in cities in Atlantic Canada, small towns and rural communities are recognizing that it's not just a nice thing that we have newcomers coming. It is a necessity to sustain the services that we have too long taken for granted. When we see population growth, we're not worried about schools closing or hospitals leaving. We're wondering where the next thing is going to be built, and we're going to be looking to newcomers who come here to be creating jobs, not taking them.
Good stuff. I think we've got time for maybe one more question. I don't think a follow-up. Is there one more on the line?
There is, and it is from Jeff Semple from Global News. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Good morning. A question for Minister Fraser. We learned this week that a 10-year-old girl in Afghanistan was killed by the Taliban. Her family had been approved to come to Canada. He'd worked with the Canadian forces. but they had no way out of the country. So I was just wondering whether the minister had any reaction to that news, any comment on why this happened and what his government is doing to keep it from happening again and to protect those Afghans, including those who supported the military and who are still trapped inside the country.
Look, she had a name. Her name was Nazifa. She was 10 years old, and I learned yesterday that she was shot and killed by the Taliban. This should shock the conscience of every Canadian. It's this kind of brutality by a recognized terrorist entity in Canadian law that justified, in part, our decision to welcome 40,000 Afghan refugees. One of the things that I think is important to highlight is Canadians have a conception that we moved in Syria in a way that nobody thought we could, and we should be able to do the same thing in Afghanistan. But the situation in Afghanistan is nothing like what we dealt with in Syria. In Syria, we were 3 years into a civil war when millions of people had fled to neighboring countries like Lebanon and Jordan. We had access to a centrally run refugee resettlement initiative with hundreds of thousands or even millions of people who'd already been referred as refugees. We had access to an airstrip, and we had the ability to safely send an airplane to these neighboring countries, load people on the airplane, and bring them to Canada where they would be destined for resettlement. None of those advantages exist in Afghanistan. We're dealing with a territory that's been seized by, as I said, the Taliban, a terrorist entity. We're dealing with a complete lack of access to a working airport. If they wanted to help us, which they don't, I don't think they'd be very good at it. The documents a person needs to exit the country in Afghanistan are different depending on where you're going and how you're getting there. And to see in this particular instance, someone who's already been approved to travel to Canada being killed by the Taliban when they go to get a passport, which Pakistan and Afghanistan were requiring to secure the exit, is unconscionable. And it is the kind of thing that motivates us to do more and more. And we will make good on our commitment to resettle 40,000 Afghan refugees, no matter what it takes.
I hate to cut it off there, but we're out of time. I want to thank all participants today. Merci et passez une bonne journée.
Merci, bonne journée.
Thanks, everyone.